using a mallet to try to hit the bell on the top picnic tables, and also the Dexter Park Hotel. And the Dexter Park Hotel traces back to when there was a racetrack in the area. The Union Course racetrack started in 1821, and if you live here in Woodhaven, it was really a big-time track. 54 acres. I think in 1823 they had 60,000 people here for a race. But in any event, Dexter Park as an amusement park and a baseball park opened in 1885, and over the years there were a number of teams that played here. And finally, come 1911, as you can see up on the sign, in 1911 there was a team playing at Dexter Park called the Dexter Parkers, and they didn't have too good a team, and the attendance fell off, and I guess they were having trouble paying the rent on the ballpark, and the Dexter Parkers folded. And Max Rosner had a team called the Paramounts, and they were a semi-pro team that started in 1904, and they originally played their games at Metropolitan and Morgan Avenue in Brooklyn. And not only was Max Rosner the owner of the team, but he was the field manager, and he also played second base. I'm not sure exactly how many years he played, probably 2 or 3, but reportedly he got spiked in one game, and he was only batting .167, and he decided that was about time to retire as an active player, so he continued as the field manager and owner. The Paramounts played at the Paramount grounds, and then they shifted to Saratoga Park, and then they were big time. 1908 they played a number of games at Washington Park, which was where the Brooklyn National League team played, and when Brooklyn was out of town, the Paramounts played at Washington Park. I had mentioned how the Dexter Parkers folded in 1911 in July, and Max Rosner brought his Paramount to Dexter Park, and when he did, that was the first week of August 1911, and he changed the name of the team to Cypress Hills. And the Cypress Hills team played here at Dexter Park the balance in 1911, they played in 1912, and 1913. But in 1913, there was some interesting happenings going on. One of the associates that Max Rosner had was Matt Strong. And Matt Strong dominated semi-pro baseball in the New York City area in March fight. But the big games that were very attractive was when the black teams came in. And the blacks were not permitted to play in organized baseball. So if you wanted to see a good black baseball player, where did you have to come? To the semi-pro parks. And a lot of the great black players over the years came to Dexter Park. But getting 17 seasons, the Bushwicks had to go on the road as a traveling team because they had no ballpark. Then World War I was on. A lot of the players were being drafted, and for 1918, the Bushwicks moved to Dexter Park, and that was a long relationship that started here in 1918, and the Cypress Hills team disbanded, so there was no problem. The original field here, the grandstand was a wooden grandstand and wooden bleachers, and the William Ulmer Brewery in Brooklyn, which was one of the large brewers, owned Dexter Park. They also owned the Triangle Hofbrau, and they also owned in Brooklyn on the waterfront Ulmer Park. And naturally, whose brand of beer was sold at all these places was Ulmer beer. But as we look into what happened in history, Nat Strong and Max Rosner leased the baseball field here at Dexter Park, and finally in November of 1922 they purchased the ball field here and the amusement park from the William Ulmer Brewery. For you youngsters out there, you might remember that we had something called prohibition. It started in 1920, lasted until 1933. Well, with prohibition, a lot of the breweries really were just limping along, brewing their beer, and William Ulmer were getting rid of a lot of their real estate, and that's why they were willing to sell 9.9 acres for the sum of $200,000. Max Rosner and Matt Strong paid $75,000 in cash and took a purchase money mortgage for $125,000. And then they wanted to see if they could refurbish the stands, and they took in a couple of minority stockholders. And between the fall of 1922 and the spring of 1923, they had a steel and concrete grandstand erected and new wooden bleachers. And I can tell you this was really big time. I remember reading some of the old newspapers. The Brooklyn Daily Eagle mentioned that this was a major league field with steel and concrete stands. This field seated 15,400 people, and in 1930, as the sign says, first night game, July 23, 1930. Please hold your hand up. Okay. Bennett's dad, Raymond Rosner, was a graduate electrical engineer from Brooklyn Polytech, and he and one of his friends, who was also an electrical engineer, they laid out the night lighting system at Dexter Park in 1930, and this was a revolutionary move. It was the first focused lighting system for night baseball, really a magnificent system. I can tell you that over the years of all the games that I've researched, and you read the old newspapers, never once have I read a report where a player was out on the field and had trouble seeing the ball. A number of the other ball fields, players would be playing out there, and the ball would go above the lights and come down and strike the peak of their cap or something scary. But never at Dexter Park. The lighting system was great. And I can remember a few years ago when Raymond Rosner gave me details of how he set up the lighting system. The power came from the New York and Queens Electric Light Power Company. And as I recall, I think it was 115 volt. And they used a step-up transformer to 127.5 volts so that the filaments in the bulbs burned twice as bright. And it was just a magnificent lighting system. And the Cooperstown Hall of Fame recognized Herman Rosner for his great contribution to baseball. And what did it do for the Bushwicks? Well, the Bushwicks used to play maybe 45 or 50 games a season, with usually a doubleheader on a Sunday and a game sometime on holidays. But they then, with the lighting system, they added a night game on Wednesday and Friday nights. And so when they did that, they then started to play like 85 to 90 games a year. And the Bushwicks outdrew the Brooklyn Dodgers in attendance. And from one of the reports, I guess in 1931, I think they outdrew 12 of the 16 major league teams. Now, the admission price was lower here than the major league parks. You could go to the bleachers here for 30 cents. If you went to Ebbets Field, it was 55 cents. But you could come here on a Sunday and you could see a doubleheader, and you saw the great black players that you couldn't see at the major league parks. So it was really good entertainment, and they were fine baseball players. A little bit later we're going to introduce some of them here and let them make some comments. And also the Rosner family that are here. Each year, Max Rosner paid the top dollar, and he would get the stars from the World Series to come here to Dexter Park to play. And you can see some of the names on the board up here. You're looking at some of the greats in baseball that played here at Dexter Park. And Roy Treble told me that I left off Willie Mays. His name should be up here too. But in any event, besides the World Series stars, a number of the major league and minor league players would come here in the fall and barnstorm, which meant they toured and they played against local semi-pro teams. In 1934, the St. Louis Cardinals defeated the Detroit Tigers in the World Series. And Dizzy Dean and his brother Paul Dean were two of the stars. They each won 2 games. And Max Rosner got the 2 Deans and Joe Medwick, an outfielder, to come here to Dexter Park. I was a teenager. I didn't have a lot of money. And a friend of mine and I, we lived in Glendale, and we came over here to Dexter Park to see if we could get in at a night game that when the Deans came with Medwick. And as I mentioned, the ballpark was about 100 yards north of here. And we figured, hey, it's 1934, nobody had any money, and we figured, who would come with a cab, a taxi cab? Only the Deans. So my friend and I, we stood at the curb down here, and we waited, and suddenly the cab was coming. And it stopped, door opened, and who came out was Dizzy Dean. So I went up to him and I said, Mr. Dean, can I carry your bag? He said, sure kid, grab it, you know. And so my friend grabbed Paul Dean's, and I think Dizzy had his wife with him and Paul had his girlfriend. So we lugged the bags up to the turnstile, and that's how I got in to see the game free. On another occasion, when Jimmy Fox, who was a great baseball player with the Philadelphia Athletics and Boston Red Sox, came with his all-stars, Barnstorming, I carried his bag in also. You had to do different things if you didn't have money. But as the years went by, Max Rosner and the Bushwicks stood for, I would say, the greatest in semi-pro baseball in America. And they also were famous in the Caribbean. In 1946, they played in an exhibition tournament down in Caracas, Venezuela. And the other 3 teams in the tournament, besides the Bushwicks, one was from Cuba, one was from Monterrey, Mexico, and one was from Caracas. And who won the tournament? The Bushwicks. And I would say that was an accomplishment that Max Rosner probably was most proud of. And Jackie Robinson signed in the fall. You may not think it, but that was really the downfall of semi-pro baseball. And the reason was that the major league teams signed up all the good black players. And the great black teams that used to come into Dexter Park, like Woodhaven, the Bacharach Giants, Homestead Braves, Newark Eagles, Kansas City Monarchs, and the Pittsburgh Crawfords, they weren't there anymore. I have a story to tell. There are some great photographs that the Rosner family brought, and they're on the trunk of the car over here. And you'll see one of them is a photo showing Babe Ruth, Max Rosner, and Dazzy Vance. And Dazzy Vance was a great strikeout pitcher with the Brooklyn Dodgers and St. Louis Cardinals. And in 1935, in September, he got his release from the team. He was getting old. And Max Rosner asked him to come and pitch with the Bushwicks in September and October, and paid him $4,000. We can tell you back in 1935, I don't know what the major leagues, hey, they were paid nominal salaries. Today, the salaries are up in the millions. But in any event, Dazzy Vance came to pitch here at Dexter Park in September and October of 1935. And I came and I saw a night game against the Pittsburgh Crawfords. The Crawfords had a magnificent team. And I think, as I recall in the game, eventually 5 of the players ended up in the Cooperstown Hall of Fame. So this was a great strikeout pitcher from the National League, and I would say they were apprehensive. I remember when Vance was warming up, the black players were standing on the steps of the dugout looking out at him, and then Vance went into an act. He reached down, got on his knees, and he reached down to feel for the pitching rubber. And he was putting on an act that he was drunk. And I can tell you the black players were really skittish at this point. And they figured, hey, this guy is going to skull us. But this was in the day, there were no batting helmets. And when that game started, Vance pitched 3 innings. I think he struck out 5 guys. And these are good ball players. And the Bushwicks beat the Crawfords that night. It was one of the great games that were played here. As we went forward and mentioned about Jackie Robinson signing, and that's the death knell of semi-pro ball, because the big league teams signed up all the good black players, and there were no more good black teams that could come into Dexter Park. In addition, television was coming in, and people could sit home and watch a big league game. So they figured, why go to Dexter Park? Eventually, the Bushwick team, at the end of the 1951 season, disbanded. And initially, they continued. They had auto racing that started in 1951, midget autos. And the auto racing continued through 1955, as the sign indicates. Then there was some question they were going to put some big apartment houses here. And the people in the neighborhood here in Woodhaven fought that. And the apartment houses did not go up, and they built a number of smaller residential homes that were built on where the baseball field was. I have one baseball story to tell, and that was the Philadelphia Stars black team came in to Dexter Park to play the Bushwicks, and it was in April, and it was a windy day, and Homer Curry, the manager of the Philadelphia Stars, was at bat. He swung the bat and he hit a high twisting fly foul as the wind blew it and struck and broke a window on the top floor in Franklin State School. Now, the Rosners and the Nat Strong family, the land was then sold and these houses were built on the land. I'm going to ask Bennett Rosner to come up and make a few remarks.
My cousin Charles here was a bat boy. I was a bat boy. My cousin David, who was here, was also here for many years. His father, who was a dentist, had an office right over in the corner building over the fried chicken store. Right next to the fried chicken store, the laundromat, since I went to high school here, because I lived on 76th Street, the laundromat, I believe it was the laundromat, was a great ice cream parlor that all the kids from high school used to hang out in after school. We have some other family members here. My sons are here, Charles, David. Who am I missing? Alan. Alan is also the grandson. His dad, all of the
existence of the Bushwicks from 1914 to 1951. Johnny, would you like to make a couple of comments? 10 years and won about 80 games out there. In 1937, he won 17 games for the Bushwicks and lost only 3.
Thank you, Bob. It's been a long time since I played ball here, I'll tell you. I remember sneaking in the side door when I was about 15 years old, watching the Bushwicks. One of our teammates, Sandlot team, was a ball boy, and he'd leave the gate open on latch for us, and we'd sneak in the side way to get in the game without paying. But I enjoyed my years over here. I was here 5 years and parts of a couple of others, but had a real good time, and I enjoyed it very much. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Semi-pro ball, was in the Marine Corps in World War II, and played for the Bushwicks.
Oh, for everything. Yeah, I guess my career was here. I'm one of the guys that got out of high school and World War II came along. Years to complete my Marine Corps duty and so forth, so when I go out I had to make a decision of whether to go away and play ball or stay home. And I decided if I could get with the Bushwicks, as Bob said, you had to play a black team, and people knew what that meant. That was a big league game. We could outdraw the Dodgers on a given day if we had like Satchel Paige coming in, or Josh Gibson, or someone like that, and people would come out. But then television came along, and we had to compete with that, and that hurt. It took a little longer, but semi-pro ball, 1941, when the Bushwicks departed, just about left. That was the end of semi-pro ball, but it was great. You people hadn't seen the Bushwicks play. It was good ball. It was very good. Thank you, Bob.
Were paid by the game or by the doubleheader, and that was always the most secretive thing. The semi-pro player would never ever tell anybody what he was being paid, and that was one of the ways that I guess the owners maybe kept the wages down. But the semi-pro players by the game, as compared with the black players who were paid by the month. And the owners of the black teams, and some of the teams were owned by whites, the black teams, by paying their players by the month, they then booked as many games as they could to get revenue. And when they were on the season, and as most of the semi-pro players and pitchers will tell you, the blacks were great fastball hitters. They played so many games that they had really good timing at the bat. And some of the semi-pro managers, if they had a fastball pitcher, they would pitch him at night rather than during the daylight against black teams. I asked Marius Russo one day, and Marius went to Richmond Hill High School, as did Johnny Bittner, and Marius pitched for the New York Yankees, won I think 45, 46, 47 games, including 3 World Series games. And if he moved down to Florida, otherwise he'd be here today. And we did have a session Mrs. Lavin put together at the Woodhaven Cultural and Historical Society a few years ago. And I asked Marius at that slide lecture whether he would tell everybody how he pitched to Josh Gibson in a game against the Pittsburgh Crawfords. And baseball players have phenomenal memories. They can remember back specific instances over many, many years. And Johnny Bittner mentioned to me that when he, in 1937, when he won 17 games for the Bushwicks and lost only 3, he could remember that when they played the New York Black Yankees, that Vance Jenkins, the outfielder, hit him for a home run, beat him. He could still remember that. And Marius Russo, when I asked him to tell everybody how he had pitched to Josh Gibson in 1936, he could tell you exactly how he keep pitching him on the outside so he can't pull the ball. George Snyder was a Speedy Gonzalez outfielder on the Bushwicks, and when Johnny Bittner was pitching for the Bushwicks in the 1940s and George was playing in the outfield, George could really run the bases and cover the ground out there. Dexter Park had a pretty good outfield, a long outfield, left field and center field. So George, how about telling us something? I remember one game when you stole home the ball game.
You hear me? Mm-hmm. I wound up to be one of the young ones near the end. It was only 2 or 3 years that I played with the Bushwicks. I really enjoyed every moment of it. I went through the experience of having a team on TV, which was a big school at that time. We used to be on TV on Wednesday nights. And I remember playing with football sneakers when we had the black pavement around for the speed racing that was going on at different nights. The thing I wanted to just point out, though, is that as much as we played with the Bushwicks, and not to take away from it, all these fellas that played with the Bushwicks played with other teams. We played in the industrial company. We also played with traveling clubs. And in fact, if you remember, we had the Cedar Heights Club, Freeport Club, Queens Club, Police Department, Fire Department, Sanitation Department. All these teams were a makeup of a lot of ball players. And I'm telling you, with the talent that we had in the what we call the city or the island, it was really great for baseball itself. And I think another thing that did take place a little later on was that we even opened up a semi-pro team out in Riverhead, and that was a travel, but it was like a field of dreams out there. They built a ballpark where they had potato fields, put up lights, and it wound up to be a very nice enterprise for a couple of seasons before semi-pro broke down. I just want to say I have the pleasure of being here today. Thank you very much.
Dexter Park. Because the park was completely packed and they couldn't handle the refreshments. I remember Kirsch soda sandwiches, hot dogs, but it was marked, so what they